Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start with our press conference. If anyone needs translation, please use the headsets. One is for Estonian, two is for English. And first, I'll give word to Foreign Minister of Estonia, Margus Tsahkna, please.
Thank you, everybody. Now you can hear me as well. Thank you, James, for coming. I'll continue with Estonian language now, and the questions can be later as well in English. Mul on väga hea meel tervitada.
I'm very pleased to welcome here my good British colleague James Cleverly here in Tallinn. The United Kingdom is our ally and partner in NATO, as are Italy and Hungary, whose soldiers were injured yesterday during the NATO mission in Kosovo. So our thoughts are with the NATO peacekeepers, and we wholeheartedly wish them a speedy recovery. I also call for the de-escalation of the situation in the region and to use diplomacy to diffuse tensions. James, I'm very happy that you're welcoming me here on this aboard on this very impressive ship, the HMS Albion. This is just one example of your continued commitment to our common security. You made a significant contribution to Estonia's freedom already in 1918, when we rid ourselves of the Russian yoke for the first time, and you're doing the same today. The United Kingdom is our like-minded partner and ally, and it's a great pleasure to discuss today the possibilities for deepening cooperation. We are happy to host a UK-led EFB battle group, and we appreciate your contribution to the Baltic air policing mission from Amari Air Base. In addition to day-to-day cooperation within NATO, we are working when it comes to future threats in the innovation accelerator Diana. While we are safe and secure here in Tallinn, then there is an unjustified war going on in the heart of Europe, in Ukraine. Aggression must be completely discredited as a tool of international relations. The idea of spheres of influence belongs in the dustbin of history. There must be no grey areas in European security. We have learned from history that grey areas only exacerbate instability. 15 years ago, at the NATO summit in Bucharest, we promised Ukraine that they would become a member of the alliance. Now that Ukraine is fighting for their right to choose their own allies, we need to show them that we as an alliance are ready to take a step forward so that Ukraine can become a member of the alliance one day. So that is what I emphasized at today's meeting, and that is what I will also emphasize at the informal meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Oslo, and tomorrow we are going there together. I would like to thank the United Kingdom for its leadership in supporting Ukraine, and I commend you for taking the initiative as a leader of the coalition for tanks and airplanes, and for organizing this year's conference on the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine. This is an example that we are facing future together. So we will continue to provide full support to Ukraine as long as necessary, and it will be necessary until Ukraine wins. Thank you, James, for coming here.
Thank you. And now, Foreign Secretary Cleverly, please.
I'd like to thank you for such a warm welcome to Tallinn today. And it's been fantastic having the opportunity to speak with you formally in your new role. I take the opportunity to congratulate you again on your appointment. The UK and Estonia are close partners and strong NATO allies. But as you mentioned, it was just over 100 years ago that the Royal Navy supported Estonia in its war of independence. And so I think it's fitting that we stand here together today on the deck of HMS Albion. It demonstrates our joint commitment to NATO and our commitment to the security of the Baltic region. Since Russia's full-scale attempted invasion of Ukraine last year, the landscape of European security has transformed dramatically, particularly for countries bordering Russia like Estonia. Putin is paying a heavy price for his unjust war, thanks to our united response. And I'm grateful for our close cooperation on sanctions, for our combined efforts to hold Russia accountable, and for the support that we have successfully provided to Ukraine. It's more important than ever that we stand together now. We must deter aggression by strengthening our collective security, because without unity, we cannot hope to defend our shared values and interests. Today, Margus and I discussed the NATO summit taking place in Vilnius in July. We agreed that we must bolster support for Ukraine and ensure that NATO adapts to an increasingly contested and volatile security environment. And I know that we both feel it's important that Sweden joins us at the table in Vilnius too, as a fully fledged member of NATO and as an important ally to us all. Swedish accession will make us all safer and stronger. The UK is proud, very proud, to lead NATO's enhanced forward presence here in Estonia. And I'm incredibly grateful for the hospitality of our Estonian allies. The recent exercise, Spring Storm, demonstrated our ability to reinforce the battle group to a brigade size, and it tested our troops on Estonia's tough terrain. On the ship today, we have personnel from the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, the Royal Air Force, and the British Army, demonstrating the depth and breadth of our commitment. On my previous visit to Estonia, I visited some of the 850 UK soldiers deployed here, and earlier today I witnessed British RAF Typhoons taking off from the Amari Air Base to help secure Baltic airspace. Security is, of course, a cornerstone of our relationship, but the UK-Estonia partnership is based on much more than just defence. Like the UK, Estonia's economic impact is disproportionate to its physical size. Our businesses trade and invest with each other on an ever larger and more lucrative scale. Total trade between our two countries increased by 28% last year and totals more than £1.1 billion. Estonia has a great reputation in the UK as a tech sector innovator, with 10 unicorn companies based around Tallinn, including Skype. And I look forward to meeting a group of tech founders and CEOs during my time here. As two leading European tech nations, the UK and Estonia have a great deal to offer. We want to make the most of the tech partnership initiated between our Prime Ministers, which they signed in December. It is an economic opportunity we cannot afford to miss, and will no doubt strengthen our bonds during these trying times. Let's remind ourselves that in 1726, Britain sent her then Baltic fleet to the coast of Tallinn to deter the Russian fleet from attacking Denmark and Sweden. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it does have a habit of rhyming. Admiral Sir Charles Wagger and his fleet's presence deterred Russia for almost 300 years ago. And I hope that our presence here today will continue to do the same. As the great Lord Nelson observed, we cannot command the winds and the weather, but we can brace ourselves against the gales and ready ourselves for the storm to come. So whatever Russia decides to do next in Ukraine, or indeed anywhere else, we are prepared. And we will continue to cultivate the rich relationship between our two countries. Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready for questions now. Before asking, please state your name and your outlet. First, yeah.
Yes, hi, Gerto Mooste from Delphi, Estonia, and a question for the British Minister. My question is about Britain's promise to keep Russia's assets frozen. Can you comment about the possibility of redirecting those funds straight to Ukraine? And Britain has offered to provide Ukrainian pilots with training on Western planes, but it's still unclear what states and how many planes that they will be providing. So do you have a timeline when Ukraine can expect planes?
Thank you. We have been consistent in our position with regard to frozen Russian assets. We abide scrupulously by international law, and we make sure that we have a very strong sanctions regime. And we will, as I say, always make sure that we comply with international law with regard to frozen assets. But it is also absolutely right that the country responsible for brutalizing the people of Ukraine and destroying significant amounts of Ukrainian civilian infrastructure must bear the brunt of whatever reconstruction costs there are. So we will investigate with our international partners the most effective way of ensuring that Russia bears the burden for the reconstruction. We stand ready in the UK to pump prime that process and help generate funds from private sector investment as well as from the public sector, so that there isn't a delay once this war is over in Ukraine's reconstruction. And that's what we will be doing next month with the Ukraine Reconstruction Conference. But it is absolutely clear that the burden of this must fall on the shoulders of the country which has done so much damage, and that is Russia, and we will ensure that we do that in close coordination with our international partners. When it comes to the training of Ukrainian fast jet pilots, we committed to that early, and we will continue to work with Ukrainians on what needs they have. It should be understood, this is not so much about training the pilots for the immediate conflict or the conflict which is happening at the moment, but ensuring that future generations of Ukrainian fast jet pilots and those that are going to be training on Western NATO standard equipment are able to do so, and that we do not detract from Ukraine's war effort by having their experienced pilots bearing the majority of the training load. We want to release those pilots for combat duty, and that is why the offer from the UK and others to train Ukrainian pilots is so important, and we will continue to work with the Ukrainians on the timescales for delivery on that.
Next question.
Thank you. Deborah Haynes from Sky News. A question for the British Foreign Secretary. We've seen reports today of drone attacks in Moscow. Do you have any details about who could be behind them? And if not, given that Kyiv comes under weekly, sometimes daily attack from Russian drones, regardless of who was responsible for the drone attacks today in Moscow, do you believe that Ukraine has the legitimate right to hit back in Moscow against Russian territory, given what's happening to its country? And a question for the Estonian Foreign Minister too, if I may. We know there's a NATO summit coming soon. We know the current Secretary General is ending his time in charge. I was wondering, for Estonia, would Estonia support a British Secretary General, maybe Ben Wallace, or are you really rooting for someone closer to home, perhaps your Prime Minister? Thank you.
So I don't have details, and I am not going to speculate about the nature of the drone attacks in Moscow. So what I'm about to say are more general points rather than on that specific incident. So first and foremost, it's important to remember that Ukraine does have the legitimate right to defend itself. It has the legitimate right to do so within its own borders, of course, but it does also have the right to project force beyond its borders to undermine Russia's ability to project force into Ukraine itself. So legitimate military targets beyond its own border are part of Ukraine's self-defense, and we should recognise that. That is not to say that I have any particular assessment over the attacks in Moscow, but more broadly, military targets beyond its own border are internationally recognised as being legitimate as part of a nation's self-defence. What we have seen, of course, and what we have done is supported Ukraine to defend itself within its own borders, and we will happily continue to do so.
Thank you for that question. I think that everybody is very interested who will be the next Secretary General of NATO. And honestly said, right now I don't know. So Wallace is definitely a very strong candidate if he will be candidate, right? The rumors, whoever, I'm sure that NATO will have very strong Secretary General who's standing for the NATO values, who's standing for the enlargement of NATO and also for increasing the real capabilities of NATO and understanding the difficult situation our international security situation is. So in the press conference, sorry, I cannot answer your question even if I know it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. The press conference is over. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.